So I'm not sure if the worst of it's over, but basically for quite a few weeks I've been in a PTSD nightmare. Traveling back to Canada, getting back to Canada, and just seeing like negative messages everywhere. And being in a relationship or a partnership where basically my partner is unknowingly triggering me a bunch of times a day. And if I was by myself, I would keep things pretty low stimulation, but it was just so strange. It's like this labyrinth of something that happened. Basically, she said, "Oh, what does your ring say?" And I have this mood ring that changes like color and stuff. And basically I looked at it then, and it was quite obvious that it said die. And then I get triggered by spilling coffee because it reminds me of blood. So she also said, "Oh, what's the weather tomorrow?" So I pulled out my phone, looked at it. Then I dropped my phone clumsily, which I wouldn't have done had she not asked. And then I spill coffee, and spilling things that look kind of like blood, like dark brown or red, is a trigger. So it's like being triggered so much every day, and it's not on purpose, but it just, the interactions a lot of the time turn into triggers. And I'd never really experienced that since the very first time. And then I ended up in the psych ward for 6 weeks, and then out for a month, and then back in the psych ward for another 6 weeks. So I see it as it could really spiral into like a long hospitalization or something like that. And I am seeing positive things too, but there's just a lot, and it's just triggered with past events and trauma and other people's trauma and family trauma, and it's just so much at the same time. And also feeling like I want to go home just to rest, because it's really hard to go through this around somebody that you care about, because they're fine and they're having a good time, and yet inside I'm not fine and I'm not having a good time, when the outer circumstances dictate that I should. Because we traveled back and we stayed in some nice places. We went to Carmel and it was really beautiful, yet I was in hell in Carmel. And yeah, it kind of started after Celine Dion. We were walking on Fremont Street the next day, and it was like a lot, and a lot of stimulation, obviously, because it's old Vegas. And then when we got back to the hotel, I started crying and like holding on to her, just feeling like scared. And that was early January, so it's been going on for a while. And then we moved into the same room, and since then it's been even more challenging because I haven't had my own space. It's like a dog smelling a car there. So yeah, when around people that I have to explain myself to, or so many things, it's really hard. You have to explain your every move, whereas usually I could just like lay down and watch Netflix for a few days. So yeah, I don't know what I need to do. I did start taking CBD oil, like 10 milligram capsules the other day. And when I did that, 2 nights ago was the first night I had a really good sleep without any like remote viewing or like half awake dreaming, and also the body sort of jolting. It feels like my nervous system or my humanness doesn't feel safe in my body and is trying to leave. But the CBD seems to calm that down. And so I'm grateful for that. So I'll keep going with that, I think. And yeah, it just feels really strange to be living with someone through this really challenging state. It feels like it's not fair to them. And at the same time, it's been really a great learning experience. And also I shared some stuff from my past that was sort of bothering me not to be honest about with her. So that feels better. Like today will be the first day that that pressure isn't there. And even yesterday, after I shared all that stuff, I came back to the place we're staying at with her, and this intense fear came over me. Like, what happened was when we were driving off the ferry, I was looking at the GPS, and there was a street called Trap, and I felt like, oh my gosh, this is a trap. Because we're staying somewhere that happens to not be on Google Maps or Apple Maps, and it's like just sort of like hidden away. It's weird. And there's this place, they put a key in the garden outside, like a frog container. And yesterday we left and the frog had moved. So it's like weird stuff like that. And I feel like since I'm with somebody else, I'm noticing these weird things more than maybe if I was by myself. I would be just moving around and more oblivious to these scary things. So anyway, this will be the first day having more openness, and I do need to go home at some point, hopefully looking a little bit better than I do today. So I'm feeling good. You know, the thing is that by not having my own space, I've sort of felt it's too difficult to even take all the vitamins that I took. So I stopped taking the vitamins. So yeah, in traveling and just not being in a space that I am familiar with and have proper like space, I just haven't unpacked them and taken them at all. And I'm taking now half a Zopicone, 150 milligrams of Trazodone. And last night I took, I think it was 150 milligrams of Seroquel, and then I took another 200 or another 50 when I woke up and I couldn't sleep. I had to ask my partner to sleep somewhere else. So yeah, it feels like back to zero, like just having this last few weeks of experience that was really bad, kind of like when I first had the experiences. And for 2 months it was really amazing, and then for a month it was more like scary, and then I ended up in the hospital. So yeah, I don't know, I feel really unstable. I feel like I've turned into more like a rapid cycler. And I know I need to work on the energy within myself. And as I was saying, when we drove from the ferry, there was Trap Road, and then there was Cemetery Road or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is scary. So after we had this experience 2 nights ago where she said, oh, we've trapped ourselves, this is a trap. So then last night I was thinking it was going to be cemetery night and that like somebody was going to come in and kill us. And I just was thinking, I don't even want to go to sleep. I want to stay up all night and protect us. But I did go to sleep and nothing happened. So there seems to be this like scary thing trying to scare. And I do feel that fear sometimes. And last time I felt the fear when I was on the island. And it was like this chemical fear that went through me. But since I was alone and not doing anything and resting in a peaceful place, there were no possibilities of these scary special messages. You know, I wasn't out and about where there's like TVs going and commercials and lots of words on signs. It was just me and the peace. So this time, last time, I got really, I think, really manic. And, you know, usually I don't speak of it in those terms, but, yeah, it's just how manic I got is, I've been so low and it's been such body pain. I looked at this bipolar disorder like infographic, and it talks about mania, like increased spending, higher self-esteem than usual, and then other things, and then the low part like excessive guilt and you know, probably suicidal thoughts. Like there's been some pretty intense stuff this time, like really intense. Whereas last time it was really easy, and the time before it was really hard because I was around my family. So I feel like I really need my own space that's quiet and peaceful. And yeah, we'll see about that. It's hard to share an epigenetic matrix as a living space, at least for now. And I don't necessarily want it to be that way, but holy crap, like, so I'm going to work on my internal energy. I'm going to try to work on my relationship with myself. And work on my relationship too. My partner is very loving and compassionate and wonderful. And I've seen that all along. And I feel it very strongly at times. And then other times I feel a little bit like I need to figure out my relationship with myself because of how badly that it's gone this time. And it makes me miss my family too, and I realize that I need to maintain these other relationships that I have. I can't only have one relationship. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm going to keep taking the CBD oil and the drugs. Just kind of go back to, you know, doctor's orders, which is, you know, had I been hospitalized, which I seriously thought I would have had to at some point, I wouldn't be able to take all the vitamins anyway. So it's almost like I got to that point where I couldn't do anything enough to, and I'd have to be hospitalized, but I wasn't hospitalized. Like there were some moments when I thought some kind of scene was going to be created that would require calling the police and then dragging me off to the psych ward, but it seems to be managed now. So yeah, I don't know. I think even just talking to myself now, I feel a bit better. I feel a bit more like, okay, there are possibilities. I'm partly trying to get back to visit my family in a state where I'm not like doing so badly. And along the way, I've been like, there's been points where I'm just like, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. Like yesterday I was planning to pack up and go home and, you know, be with my family. But we went out, and then it ended up getting to this point where I told her some stuff about my past. Whereas I was going to try get things in order and then tell her, but I just had to tell her. And now I have. So maybe that'll help me get a little bit in order. Like this time around, I've like gone for a few days without showering and brushing my teeth, and that hasn't happened in the last couple years when I've had this relationship with myself and talking with myself. You know, there really is something to the impartial witness and saying things out loud, and the phone is an impartial witness for sure. So yeah, I think I need to keep talking with myself and maybe change the conversation a bit, because now I really need to figure out life properly somehow. So yeah, this whole bipolar, wow. I also realized that by going to California, like the 2 times I've gone to California for any length of time, I should even say 3, because the first time I went to California was before it all started. I think it puts me in this really high vibe where I'm totally manic, but it doesn't feel manic because the space is that energy too. Whereas in the lower space back home is sort of lower energy. Not in terms of bad or good or anything. It's just in California, it's high vibe and spiritual, a lot of places. And a lot of it's just the weather, you know, being somewhere in the wintertime that's hot and sunny, that just gives more energy for things to speed up. And then the more I speed up, the more the crash is. So yeah, lots happening. So yeah, I'm gonna go now, and yeah, I need to really put some goodness out there, some positivity. I think I've gotten past the point where there's going to be some kind of death. You know, I've feared that something bad's going to happen to me or someone else that I love and care about, and I just feel like no. And I've talked to myself before about how sometimes I feel like if I experience the pain of that possibility, then it's no longer a possibility. So there could be some weird intelligence behind this, but I've seen how much suffering I can take, and it's a lot. It is a lot. So yeah. And the other thing is that since I've maybe through the worst of this now, it might be a good time to go on the Hearty Nutritionals for a while, because it's a simpler program than what I was doing with Peter Smith, and just see if it works for a while. Maybe it will, because if I'm past the worst of it, it could work. So maybe I could taper onto the Hearty Nutritionals again. And it's simpler to have just a couple bottles of stuff than a million bottles. So we'll see.